Hello, everyone. I am Tommi Vincent, your host of In Her Words podcast, a Tommi Vincent podcast. And I am delighted today to have joining us at the table Saraya. Saraya has helped pioneer WWE's women's evolution. She is a reality TV star, an actress, and currently a professional wrestler with All Elite Wrestling. Saraya, thank you so much for joining me at the table, and I'm delighted that you're going to be staying a while with me to have a conversation in your words.
Thank you, and thanks for having me again. For everybody watching, just so you know, I have multiple monitors, so if you see me look off to her side, I'm just looking at Tommi and her wonderful face. It looks like I have an evil lair going on in here with all these monitors, but I'm a streamer, so many different ones, yeah.
We get it. We get it. So we are going to get right into our conversation. And the very first question I have for you is, who is Saraya in your words?
Oh my gosh. So I spent the better half of 11 years in WWE under the wrestling name Paige. So a lot of the world knows me as, well, a lot of the world that is inside, the wrestling world and the reality world knows me as Paige for such a long time. So now I have to be myself, which is Saraya, and it's such a brand new thing, oddly enough, because I'm only 30 and I spent half my life being a different character. So now Saraya is just, she's a lot more calm than Paige was. Paige was like this crazy, gothic, screaming, kind of angry, angsty teenager, And now Saraya is more of a mature version of that, I would say. But yeah, I'm just starting to rebrand and kind of get out there as Saraya. So I'm still kind of building her up. So I'm excited to see where I take her.
So you are described as helping to pioneer WWE's women's evolution. This is a two-part question. What does that mean to you? And how does that responsibility impact the way that you move throughout the industry now?
So before I got into WWE, even though the women were very talented, the bosses at the time didn't really take the chance on them. So they only got limited amount of time. And if the show was going too long, the girls match or girls segment would be completely cut. It would never be any of the men's, it would be the women's. All their opportunities would get taken away. Or if they were on the show, it would be very limited time. So like other people's, like the men's matches would be like 25 minutes. Where the women would be like, okay, you got 2 minutes and that's to walk out to the ring, walk back from the ring and try and do this match while trying to tell a story too. So it was very difficult to be a female in such a male-dominated industry. So I remember before I got to WWE, I would send out resumes to people, to different wrestling companies, and I would get turned away just for the fact that I was a female wrestler, right? I was a female. And so I already had it in my head, like I wanted to change the trajectory of like how women were perceived in the wrestling industry. And I know a lot of women wanted to do that too. So when I first got to WWE, they were still doing bikini contests and not being taken seriously. And we would essentially be called a toilet break, where that's the time when people would go use the restroom, would be during the women's matches. And I got really frustrated with that. And I said, once I get to WWE, like, because I know I'll get there, I'm going to change that. Like, that's going to change. So when I got there, I was already different from the way I looked. Like, I was pale with all these piercings and dark hair, where the girls were like supermodels. They were gorgeous, like glamorous, but they all wanted to, wrestle and stuff, but they weren't treated like wrestlers. So getting there, I felt like a lot of, I felt bad for the women. I just wanted them to be taken seriously. So then we all kind of got together and was just like, okay, we should start changing things around here. Like taking our time, like kicking down doors. And, and I remember being like, I don't want to do these bikini contests anymore. I feel like there's kids in the crowd. You want me to take my shirt off and like wave it around in a bikini? Like that's so, to me, it's inappropriate. I don't like that. So that started changing, which I liked. And then when I got up onto the main roster, I had to like start again, with like a different crowd of women. And one day they were like, you only have 2 minutes. We got cut. And I just got so frustrated at that point. So me and the Bella twins and this girl called Emma were just like, you know what? Let's just go out there and do like 10 seconds. It was like, I don't care that you gave us these 2 minutes. We're going to take 10 seconds of that. We do not care at this point. We just like, we've suffered enough when it comes to this kind of stuff. So we go out there, we do it. And then on Twitter, it's trending for 3 days. Give divas a chance, which is what we were called in WWE before they changed the name to Superstar, to kind of give us an even playing field with the men. They eventually changed the name of it. But yeah, so that's the thing that kind of like started like igniting the fire of the revolution. And then we started getting longer matches and longer times and more segments on the show. And it all kind of started just from like, you know, that ball kind of getting like everything rolling and everything going. And so like, so it felt really good to be like one of the pioneers for that. You do get a lot of pressure with that because now going to AEW, a whole new company, people expect you to do like change things straight away, you know, and it takes time. Like I feel proud to be a part of it, and I'm really happy to be there. But things do take time, and I feel like the women are already just absolutely fantastic. So there's only little tweaks you can do now, which is great. But some of the fans expect you to get the job done like straight away. And I'm like, it took me years in WWE. You know? Yeah. I've only been in AEW 6 weeks. So I feel like a lot of pressure when it comes to that. But it definitely feels good to be one of the pioneers, though.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you say that because I did see when you made your debut in AEW, I saw that was part of how you were introduced. You know, that you were going to transform the landscape for the women in that sector, and it was just interesting. And then, you know, as I did more research on you and saw that this was part of, you know, what you were known for, it made sense to me why that was part of your description. But I have to tell you that I found that to be an inspiration, that even in this space, you know, where women are looking to carve out and take up space, that you are known for making that level of impact. And I want to commend you on that, and having, you know, your stance on, you know, coming in and understanding, yes, it takes time, but you're willing to do the work and be a part of the collective body that's making things better for women.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That really means a lot. Because, like, you know, coming into this at such a young age, too, like, when I got to WWE, I was 19. And doing that at such a young age, it comes with also a spotlight on you. Because with WWE, once you get there, you kind of get thrusted into the spotlight. And I always say getting that kind of level of, you know, notoriety is, like, it can be kind of damaging, too. So, like, I kind of went through a stage personally where even though I was doing well professionally, personally, it was affecting me a lot because I felt the pressure. I felt like I wasn't being a kid. You know, I didn't have a life. So, I mean, I don't know how much digging you've done, but like publicly, I've had a lot of, you know, controversy too. Like I had like an addiction, which I've been sober for over 5 years now. Very proud of that.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you. And I like to speak on that to a lot of people too, not just women, but men as well. Like even if you hit rock bottom and have these addictions, you can come out of it. And then, you know, I had not the best relationship with somebody too. And then on top of that, I had these tapes released about me when I was 19. And I had such a dark moment where I was like, if my family don't accept me for this, I probably wouldn't be here today, right? But they were so supportive and so fantastic. But also, I'm glad all those things happened to me, because not only, you know, you're doing stuff, again, for women professionally, but behind closed doors too. I can help so many men and women that have been through just personal lives and relationships, drug addictions, alcohol addictions, not making the best decisions with boyfriends in the past, and then coming to bite you in the butt, and also helping people kind of navigate around social media too. So there's so many different things I try and help people with because I experienced them, which is the good thing.
Yeah. And the reason why we know about these things in your life and why it's something that is public knowledge is because your life is in the public eye. And as you and I both know, there are people all over the world who experience those very same things, and they have to go through them in in secret, if you will. And you had to manage that and still have the spotlight on you and work through that in an open forum, which
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine is an easy thing to do. Like an example, I have experienced some of all of what you talked about. And I was not in the public eye, and I had the opportunity to have that space to figure life out, and I'm at any time people come in a space of judgment about what has taken place or what people have experienced in life, I remind them that I'm sure if we were to pull out a chapter in your life, there's a period in time where people just don't know about it. And you
Yeah.
had the opportunity to manage that and to heal from that in your own time and space. But people that are in the public eye, they don't get that liberty. They have the whole world judging them and looking in on and talking about shoulda, coulda, woulda. And to your point of other people being able to benefit from your journey, that's what it's all about. If the light's going to be on, then use that light to make the difference in somebody else's life.
Exactly, and that's why like I feel like I'm glad that all those things happened to me, because I was lucky enough that I was strong enough to come out of it, because that could have broke a lot of people. I always called myself a cat. Like, I have 9 lives. I've been through a lot of things at such a young age, but I just feel so fortunate that it was me, because I love helping people and actually being able to speak from experience too, and show them that there is an after. You do become a survivor rather than, like that's the most the most powerful word you can use, is saying that you're a survivor. Because you
Mm-hmm.
are, essentially you are, like, you managed to come through all those hardships, and what, like I just said, like, would have broke most people, and come out of it stronger, healthier, and better than you've ever been. Because I feel healthy. I feel the healthiest I've ever been in my life, even before I had addictions. Like, I feel extremely healthy. And I credit that on everything that I went through, because now I know how it feels to be like that. I never want to be like that again. And now I get to help so many people with it. It's so important. It's so wonderful.
Mm-hmm. You may have heard the saying, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And you mentioned on how for half of your life, you were, as a professional, you were branded under the name of Paige. And now you are Saraya. So, what description of you speaks to who you truly are as a woman? And in that process, what did you have to leave behind, or what did you choose? Not even necessarily did you have to, but what did you choose to leave behind to make sure that Saraya is represented the way that you desire to be represented?
So I feel like the most important thing to surround yourself with is your community, and that goes for addiction or anything that you get yourself into. It's so important to have people around you that benefit you in a positive way. Your mental health, your well-being, just everything in general, just makes you a better person. Like, I have a wonderful boyfriend who elevates me now, and I have a handful of friends. That's all you need. I'm telling you, that don't want anything from me apart from me having good health and being happy. And I'm fortunate to have a wonderful family too. So the thing that I had to leave behind was those toxic people that I had around me that would encourage me to drink or do drugs or surround myself with the wrong people, like, or weren't there for me when I did hit rock bottom. Because that's when you really see who your real friends are too. And so the handful of people that stuck by me, they're still beside me for a reason. So yeah, when it comes to what I had to leave behind, it's just mostly the people. It was so important to just leave them in the past. I don't have any ill will to them. They're
Mm-hmm.
just not good for Saraya now.
Mm-hmm. All professional athletes, every single sport, there's an expected end to your career. How do you focus on being the best professional wrestler today and prepare for the next match in your life?
Oh my gosh. So I have my first match coming up in 5 years. So preparing for that, just in general, like in wrestling times, it's nerve-wracking. It's intimidating. There's going to be a big spotlight on that because I was supposed to be out. Like I got told I couldn't wrestle again 5 years ago because I would be paralyzed. So I had to completely retire from in-ring competition, which was one of the most devastating things to happen in my life too. That's another thing, right? Mm-hmm. But I took that and was just like, well, I can either be really sad about this or I can continue on with my life and try and go down other avenues, right? So instead of like dwelling on it and feeding back into my addictions, I went down a path of positivity instead and kept my head high. And was just like, if I was to wrestle one day again, then fantastic. If not, I've come to terms with the fact that I probably won't be able to. Fast forward 5 years later, I get an MRI, I get a CT scan, I get x-rays done on Halloween. And they told me that I was completely cleared to wrestle again and that my neck was completely healed. And I was just like, well, do you think I'm going to be paralyzed if I get in the ring? And they said, well, all the fluid is now around your spinal cord. So you getting paralyzed from this would be considered rare. You do have a little bit of cushion there now. So if anything does happen in the ring where you take a bump that's a little bit wrong, you're not going to be paralyzed from it. And that was it. I mean, I cried instantly. I called my family back in the UK and I was just like, I get to wrestle again. Like, I can't believe it. And I put that on the fact that I spent 5 years being positive and happy and eating healthy and taking care of my body. And again, the community that I have, because I feel like if I was still in the mindset of 5 years ago, I wouldn't be able to get back in the ring today. So again, that's another thing that I like to like help people with when they think that something is over. Mm-hmm. It's never truly over, you know. And if God forbid something awful will happen if you ever do something or whatever, like in your job, and you can really not do anything, like doctors are completely ruled out, you know. Just know that life is wonderful outside of it too. Like, because I had a ball the past 5 years doing stuff that I never thought I would do before. I've had a fantastic 5 years outside of wrestling. So now I get to be in the swing of things again. But yeah, I just, again, all the stuff that's happened, now I get to help people with it in every capacity.
Mm-hmm. So you actually had an opportunity to experience you had that window of time where there was the possibility that you would not be able to be the professional wrestler that you once were.
Exactly.
So one of the things that my husband and I have an opportunity to do is we actually get to mentor and spend time with other couples who one of the spouses, they are professional athletes. And so it's always about the transition. Like you may do this for 15, 20 years, 25 years, whatever, depending on the sport, you know, and the level of physicality. But at some point in time, you're not going to be able to do that. It has nothing to do with anything other than time, and your body just said, hey, that's enough. Or whomever you're working with, they want to pivot and move in a different direction. So while you're doing your wrestling, what do you do to make sure that you have the next phase of your life accounted for so that you're stepping into something and not having to figure it out?
So we brought up Meech before this, like, you know, Meech Golden. He's a fantastic manager for me too, and he's always keeping me positive as well, even when I have those days of like, oh my gosh, I'm in panic mode, like I'm 30 now, you know, like age is always like a factor to us. I don't know why, but it's just like, you know. But the thing that's really wonderful is that he, you know, managed to set up all these Zoom calls, which I realized how many Zoom calls you have to do when you're not focused on one thing and you're trying to like build a new brand and build like a whole new career. You're just like, oh my gosh, like the amount of Zoom calls I've done is wild. But we're starting to build like a really nice structure, and I love that. Like, you know, we got like this wonderful book deal, and these production companies want to work with me. So I had a meeting with like around 10 production companies, and I'm like, all these people have an interest, and I think that's wonderful. Like, I want to be able to do a docu-series show with them. Not so much like a reality like I did with Total Divas, where it was kind of similar to like Housewives, you know, where we kind of just, there's a lot of women where we bickered, and I'm like, I don't want to do that kind of show. This docuseries I want to be able to do is, again, to help people. So it's to follow me and my boyfriend, because he's been through a lot too, on a journey where, you know, we can help people and talk about everything that we've been through and show them that you can come out on the other side, and then continue and watch me rebuild Saraya, because at 30, I'm rebuilding myself. And I'm just showing that age doesn't matter too. I know 30 is still young, but to a lot of people, it's scary to rebuild yourself at 30. It is really scary. And I'm starting essentially from scratch again, you know.
No, I get it. I was 40 when I started my rebuild. So
see,
listen.
That's so empowering, and that's beautiful. And like hearing that from you just makes me think that I can do it, you know. And
Absolutely.
so that's beautiful. It gives me chills, but like I started at 40. I'm like, yes, you did. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and you brought up Meech. Meech is he keeps it golden, and so I appreciate everything that he does, and I know that he's one of the most positive people that I've ever encountered.
Oh my gosh!
So I know that he keeps you up, and he keeps you focused on, like, keep your eye on the prize and all this other stuff. So it's wonderful that you have him as a part of your team.
He's amazing. He really is very, very positive. Like I will have like these, I will literally be freaking out, because I'm like my own worst enemy at times too. Like I can get in my head, you know, and I'm just like, oh, like, and I still get insecure about a lot of things, you know. It happens. It happens to the best of us. And, you know, I'll get a voice message to him and I'm like, Meech, I'm having a meltdown. And he'll talk me off a ledge, you know, because like, I just know that I can always reach out to him in a friendship thing rather than just a manager-client thing. He's just always going to be there at whatever time. He's just like, I got you. Everything's going to be okay. You're going to be doing this soon. Next year's going to be a big, like, you know, I'm just like, yeah, and like hype me up. He's just truly wonderful.
So your journey has been so unique and powerful that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson produced a movie about your journey titled Fighting with My Family. Now, Fighting with My Family was top 3 in the USA when it came out and number 1 in Europe. Did that create a level of uncomfortable vulnerability with the world having that much of access to your life in that way?
Yeah, so like, well, the wonderful thing about the movie was they just did such an incredible job with it. So this is how the movie even came about. Is there's a documentary, because I come from a wrestling family in the UK, and we had a documentary when I was younger about my journey trying to get to the WWE. But so Dwayne was filming Fast and Furious in the UK, and he stumbled across this documentary and was just like, oh, I love this, right? And that's called Fight With My Family too. And so he was during WrestleMania, and he didn't realize I got signed at that point to WWE. So I get like a text on my phone backstage at WrestleMania being like, hey, it's DJ. I would love to speak to you at some point. And I'm like, excuse me for, like, I said, who the is DJ? And why is he texting my phone? You know, like, who is this person? And I had like this producer next to me called Dean Malenko, and he was just like, that's Dwayne Johnson, you idiot. I'm like, oh my God, Dwayne Johnson is texting my phone? Like, this is crazy. At this point, I'm 21, you know. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so he brings me, he sends someone to come get me, brings me to his locker room, which once I got in there, he was like, hey, I'm DJ. And I'm like, yeah, dude, yeah, of course, hello. You know, and he was just like, oh, I saw your documentary. And he was like, I just absolutely loved it. He was like, thank God for insomnia, because, you know, it was very late when I got to see it. And he's like, so I want to make a movie on your life. And I'm like, 21. And I'm like, what? Usually people have to pass away for a movie to be made on their life, right? And here I am, alive and kicking. And so, like, and then he told me, like, I was going to debut on the main roster the next day, become Divas champion. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so much information. And then he was like, but don't tell anyone because it's a secret. And I was just like, oh, shoot. Okay. So I leave his locker room, and then his cousin, Tamina, who was a WWE wrestler too, she was walking in to go say hi. And I was walking out crying my eyes out, and she was just like, what were you doing in there, sis? And I'm like, I'm just a really big fan of Dwayne. Like, I didn't know what else to say because I wasn't supposed to tell her anything. So fast forward a few years later, I was going through all that up and down, all that public controversy and stuff like that. So the movie was nearly not going to get made because of my actions, right? So if that wouldn't have come out, that would have been my fault. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And he's one of the reasons why I decided to get clean and get better and get, and get my butt back to WWE and start training again, because I was just like, if this movie doesn't come out and if I start, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life. I have this opportunity to have and then I heard that MGM wanted to pick it up, and then Lionsgate was picking it up, and then all these just Film 4 picked it up, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Then you have Florence Pugh, who's Black Widow now. She was playing me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, Florence Pugh, Then you had Stephen Merchant writing and directing it, and then you have Lena Headey, who is one of the stars of Game of Thrones. She played Cersei Lannister. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a huge deal. And I'm like, I nearly effed that up, And so, it was awesome when sorry, I'm telling the long story here. I apologize. I sometimes tend to do that.
No, please. Yeah. It's in your words. It's your time at the table.
Thank you. So the movie came out, and then they were like, okay, we're going to go to Sundance with this too. And I was like, Sundance? I was like, I can't believe this. Sundance is this huge film festival. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So, we get there, and there was a standing ovation for it. But first of all, I was sitting next to Florence, and she was looking at me like, usually people are dead, but now I have to sit next to you while you watch me play you. And I'm like, it's okay, you're doing a fantastic job. You're better me than me, you make me look better, And so it was just really beautiful to see how receptive positively, people were to that movie. And it was toned down in a way that my family are a lot more crazy, but I mean, that would be more than a PG movie if they really showed my family to its full extent. But they did such a wonderful job, and I just felt so lucky. And I'm just like, out of all the wrestlers in all the world, they did a movie on me. And I was just like, that is such, who else can really say that? I'm like, that's such a beautiful thing. And I just feel so lucky. I just, even now, the movie's been out for a few years now. People are still coming up to me being like, I was inspired by that movie because you came from a small town. It's like a female Rocky movie. And it's more than just a wrestler movie. It's just about, a girl from a small city, making it to a different country, getting to the big leagues of wrestling, where the likes of Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock was built. And to actually make it, it was just so beautiful. And yeah, I'm glad that movie also inspired people. But yeah, having people look at you through the microscope with that too, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to know a lot of things about me. But again, it's an inspiring story. So I'd rather tell it so that it can help a lot of people too. So it has a lot more upside than it does downside.
And nothing like being able to tell your own story. You know what I'm saying? Telling your story in your words, there's power in that, just having that ability as well. So that's wonderful. Will you share with us, and I know you've already talked about some of the challenges that you've experienced in your life, but will you share with us one of the most challenging moments of your life? And knowing what you learned through that process, what advice would you go back and tell yourself about how to navigate that journey?
The one thing, there's a bunch of different things, again, that I've went through, which I wish I didn't. The one thing though, as I really, really wish I didn't, which I do regret, is the videos that I did. And I wish I was smart enough to realize that it's not the smartest decision to let yourself be filmed, and a lot of women are really young and naive, and they kind of they want to make their partner at the time happy. And I just want women to know, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. You really don't. But it also isn't the end of the world when things like that do come out. And that's the important part, is how my family was so supportive with it. My dad used Kim Kardashian as a reference. I was like, I'm not going to be as big as Kim Kardashian, Dad. When it comes to that tape. But, it's not as big of a deal as how we feel it is. So I just want women to know, if, again, God forbid that was to ever happen to them, social media isn't real. It's out there. Again, you can't change the fact that it's out there. But just know, the sea gets calmer after a while, and to not let, people, especially on social media, tell you that you're not a good person, or or tell you, a lot of people have the opinions being like, well, you shouldn't have got filmed if you didn't want it out there, and I'm just like, that's not how it works. Like, I never wanted it out there. I just wanted to please who I was with at the time. And but yeah, I just want women to know that, take control of their own lives, and don't listen to anybody that doesn't have the best intentions for you. And it's easier said than done. But yeah, I wish I would have told myself that back then. Like, don't do this, because I didn't trust that person fully back then. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just like, oh, there's something iffy about you. But I was like, I felt like I had to. Like, I was 19. I was just like, oh, okay, if this is gonna make you happy, I'll do it. But you have to always put yourself first, and I wish I put myself first in that moment.
So is that the advice you would have given to that 19-year-old Saraya? Put yourself first.
Yeah, trust your gut and put yourself first. I never used to put myself first. Up until about 5 years ago, I was a people pleaser. I always wanted to, I never wanted to upset people. And anytime there was drugs or a boyfriend or whatever, I was just like, whatever, yeah, we'll do whatever you want to do. I never thought about myself. I never put myself first. And I just wish a lot more people, men and women, would do that. It's so important to love yourself before you give yourself to somebody else, So, and that's in friendships and relationships too. Like, just always love yourself first, and always put yourself first.
It's interesting because our capacity to love others is actually capped off at our capacity of how much we can love ourselves. You can't love beyond that point. And so taking the time to really get to know you and to love you first, it actually opens up your heart to be able to love people in a greater and more meaningful way. And also our advantage is, because we love ourselves, we'll be more intentional about who and what and where and how we'll engage with other people, and having an understanding of real love, then we're able to spot the counterfeits more easily, and not only spot them, but because we're choosing us, say, absolutely not. Like, that's not a road I'm willing to go down.
Yeah, I'm right now, I'm not afraid to cut people out. I used to be scared of doing that, being like, well, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, but they're not good for me, so why am I letting them, why do I care about hurting their feelings when they don't care about mine? So now I'm not afraid to be like, this isn't working out. I would rather continue on my journey without this person than to keep them in and then affect my mental health, because mental health is very important. But again, luckily I have a boyfriend of 4.5 years now, where I don't have to worry about what he's thinking, or if he's going to be mad at me for any unknown reason, or he's just always encouraging me to be better. And I love that. And the friendships I have now too are all very encouraging. It's really wonderful to have that wonderful community. But don't be afraid to cut people off. I'm telling you, for your own mental health, don't be afraid.
So we're going to move into the next segment of our conversation. And the title of this segment is I Am Bringing Her to the Table with Me. And this segment allows you the opportunity to give another woman her verbal flowers, because you know that without a shadow of a doubt, your career would not be where it is today without her fingerprint on your life.
Okay. It might be just a couple of them, actually. So, if I can say, okay, yes. Well, there's 4 strong women. Anyone outside of that, I just don't know, right? But these 4 women are just so incredible. First of all, Joy Lynn, she was in WWE, in the studios pod, doing all the PR and all that kind of fun stuff. And she's just always been my number one supporter throughout the whole thing. She was there for my ups and downs, and she never turned her back on me. And even up until this point, she's helping me build a career outside of wrestling. She's just so supportive all the time. When she brought the movie over to my house one day just so I could watch it, before it came out. because the first time I watched it, I cried my eyes out that I couldn't remember it. So she brought it over and we all sat down and she was crying. My boyfriend was crying. It was like a whole thing. So her, Joy Lynn, she's just really wonderful. Renee Paquette, who was in WWE with me, and now she's also in AEW with me. She's just been my friend again and has never stopped being beside me. She also has a wonderful podcast. She's also a chef. So you guys need to meet each other because you would absolutely adore her. I don't know anyone that doesn't like Renee. I feel like you two would be so compatible. She's just a really, she's influential in a positive way, you know, and she's just a wonderful person. You have to meet each other. You guys, as soon as I saw that you did like food and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, you're Renee. I have another friend, Raquel Welch. She has a famous name. She's not the Raquel Welch though, but she was named after her. She was my friend outside of wrestling, outside of anything. She is not in the public eye. She doesn't do anything like that. She's just she was a bartender when I first met her. And now she does photography for a clothing company, and she still doesn't know one or two things about wrestling. She still does it. She just loves me for me. And again, she was there for me when all my other friends in our friend group at the time in Florida, she was the only one that stood beside me the whole time. And she let me live with her when I was at my lowest. And, and she also, whenever I needed photos taken, she would drop everything and come over to my house. She lived with me for a little bit too. I returned the favor, and she's just an incredible person. And then the last one is my mum, because without her, I wouldn't be in the wrestling business. You know, my mum and dad both started WAW, which is their wrestling company. But I wouldn't have my wonderful name, Saraya. She came up with that. It was actually a crazy story. She was, and okay, so this story, she's a rocker, right? She has like bright red hair and like piercings and tattoos. She was at a Slayer concert in the 80s, and she misheard Slayer for Saraya because she was under the influence of stuff. And so I'm technically named after Slayer. And so like, thank you for that, mother. But she's been my rock throughout the whole thing, like my best friend. So my mom, Sweet Saraya is her wrestling name, but her real name is Julia.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? So I see a pattern in your life. You started out our conversation and we talked about how you were part of the pioneering women, really establishing, you know, and shaping women in WWE. And it was a collective group of women. And then when we get to the point where you're bringing a woman to the table, it's not one woman for you, it's multiple women. And so it's clear that you understand the power of togetherness. And also, you know, you love the people that you connect with. Like once you connect with you, once you're in your circle and in your life, now knowing that, listen, you're not afraid to cut people out. So we ain't talking about you letting everybody in. But once you find your people, you love your people.
Oh, 100%.
You love your people.
I am fiercely loyal to my friends.
Yes.
Like I will always have their back. I will always be there for them. Like they were there for me. Like I just will always be there for them. And I'm one of my love language is gift giving too. So like when it comes to like Christmas and birthdays, like especially Raquel, because she's just like, you know, she is my number one. I just like, she gets inundated with stuff. She's just like, please stop. Like she's just, and she never asks for anything from me, which I love. Like none of the women do. They never ask anything from me. They just want to be there for me. And I feel like that's so important. Because like, I would always be there. If they wanted something from me, I would absolutely give it to them. But the fact that they're just like, they don't ask. They never ask. They're such selfless women. And I wish they would ask for more stuff because I would do it. But they just want happiness and they just want everyone to be healthy. And that's just so important for me.
So let's move into our final segment of our conversation. And it is titled, Food is Love. And as you mentioned, you know that I am a chef. And so these questions just speak to me because this is one of the ways that I love people to life, and that's through food. So my first question for you is, what food best describes your personality and why?
I would say, okay, so I would say, at first I was going to say pizza because everyone loves pizza, but not everyone loves me. So I'm going to say pasta bolognese because it's good, I could be a little much at times. You know, you get a little full. You're like, all right, her energy is too much for me sometimes. So take a little 5 minutes away. So, pasta bolognese. I love that dish, by the way.
How has food ever been healing for you?
Oh, 100%. So after I started kind of grappling my addiction, I wasn't eating very much back then. The drugs and stuff would stop me from being hungry, so I wouldn't eat. So once I got sober, man, I loved to eat. Like, I absolutely loved it. Like, I started getting bigger and bigger, and I did not care, because I was just like, I have such a love for food again. I'd spent a couple of years of just like not taking care of my body. But although I started eating McDonald's, I can't eat that now because I ate a lot of McDonald's. Oh, I could not eat it now. Sorry, you guys. If you love McDonald's, like, oh gosh, I cannot see another one. But I was just eating so much food. And then during the pandemic too, I switched over. Well, I've been plant-based for 4 years now, completely plant-based. And during the pandemic, I started to teach myself different like plant-based recipes and all that kind of fun stuff, and trying to teach myself how to cook. I'm not saying I'm like you or Renee, but I mean, I can do a couple of dishes and it tastes really good. I make it with love, you know? And so, yeah, like that, like, so after my addiction and then during the pandemic, like, it just felt exciting to me to create some recipes plant-based wise.
And the final question is, does your family have an heirloom recipe that is passed down from generation to generation?
So my mom is actually in the middle. She doesn't have just one recipe. My mom is a chef too. And so she's a big foodie. So she is writing down, handwriting them, because she's a little more old school. She's like, we don't need to print these out. But she's taken the time to write down all these recipes in this big book from her and my grandma and stuff. And she's getting them together. She's going to send them to me. So I can't wait to get a hold of them. But the first thing she taught me was actually a bolognese, which is why it's one of my favorites, and a shepherd's pie, which is obviously a British dish. You would know, it's just delicious and it's pretty easy to make. So yeah, just those two dishes especially is my mom's favorite.
That's going to be one of the greatest gifts that you are ever going to receive, because you'll be able to take that book and pass it along for generations. Like, so everybody will know your mom, everybody will know your grandmom. So that is going to be, that is definitely an heirloom gift that will be able to be passed down for generations. Well, Saraya, I am so grateful that you took the opportunity to take some time with me and to stay a while and have a conversation in your words. Is there anything that we did not talk about that you would like to share with the listeners?
I think we actually covered it, but I just want to say this is a whole different audience for me. So I welcome them all to watch the movie Fighting With My Family. If they like it, fantastic. And if they've heard my story so far, I hope that this interview has helped them in a way to know that they're not alone. And everything does get better. So I just more focusing on your listeners. I just hope this helped them a lot.
So how can people find you and follow along with you on your journey?
Okay, so Instagram is just Saraya, at Saraya, Saraya. Twitter, I'm also Saraya. On TikTok, I still have my WWE name. It's WWE, I think, official page WWE. And then I'm also on Twitch, where I do a lot of live streams. That's Saraya Official. So yeah, if you want to come and hang out with me on there, fantastic. I love to speak. I like to talk a lot. So if not, you can catch me on AEW on TBS on Wednesdays.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Saraya, and just know that you are welcome anytime at the In Her Words table.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Gonna stay a while.